Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. I am so happy to be with you today. You know how excited I get when we just have an extra special guest, and today is one of those days. My producer found her. She was looking on social media and came upon this dynamic woman of a certain age who was having her birthday party and said, wait a minute, I need the DJ to play Lil Baby, and they weren't playing it. She's like, yes, you will. You will play my song so I can dance. I love it. I love people who have the energy of passion, compassion, youth, connection to the spirit on all different kind of ways. And that is who we're going to be talking to today. Let me tell you who she is. She is Dr. KOKO ZAUDITU SELASSIE. She's a retired professor of English from Coppin State University. Her journey spans continents, cultures, and academic accolades. From being a Fulbright scholar in Côte d'Ivoire, the first place that I went in Africa, to exploring African spirituality in literature, she has left an unforgettable mark on the world of academia. Author of I Got a Home in That Rock and African Spiritual Traditions in the novels of Toni Morrison, she has received recognition, including the Toni Morrison Society's 2010 award for the best single authored book. Her latest ventures include a novel titled The Second Line and a forthcoming memoir, Caravan, The Amazing Adventures of a Negro Girl Straight Outta Compton. Please join us as we embark on a journey through the rich narrative of Dr. KOKO, Mama KOKO, of her experiences exploring literature, spirituality, and the diverse landscapes that have shaped her remarkable life. Please join me in welcoming Dr. KOKO ZAUDITU SELASSIE.
Yay. Oh, may your ancestors, my ancestors, all of anybody ever had a wish, a hope, or a dream for us be so pleased for this moment. Stone the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the places for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading the path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past till we now stand at last where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. James Weldon Johnson, Atlanta University graduate, his brother John Rosamond Johnson. I bring you greetings from the Clark Atlanta University and the Atlanta University, the whole AU Center for this moment. And I thank you so much, Harriette. Harriette, the name, the idea that someone named you, they claimed you, they put you on your path, they told you by the purpose of your name who you are in the world. And I'm so happy to be here. She's on my spiritual board of directors. Think about an unpedicured foot. Whenever you want to primp and pamper, think of an unpedicured foot that walked many miles for liberation. And that should be enough to get you through any dream, scheme.
Indeed, my dear. And you know what? As I have looked at your work, and one of the things, this is how connected we are without even knowing it. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about was the importance of naming, because I've read that is so close to your heart. And so I have to tell you a story about my name. Harriette spelled the old-fashioned way, TTE on the end. You know, I'm always listening to people tell me, how they spell my name, because it's spelled lots of different ways. When I was a little girl, Mama KOKO, little girl growing up in Baltimore, by the way, and my mother went to Coppin State University. My 94-year-old mother, still in Baltimore, went to Coppin State University.
Whoa, shout out West Side.
Come on now. And so when I was growing up, I was in elementary school. I was the tallest, skinniest one. I wore glasses before they were cool, way before they were cool. You know, I was 4 eyes. I was olive oil. I was anything that you could say. You know how kids can be mean. They just taunted me. And there was a commercial that was really popular back then, before we had 10,000 commercials like we do now. And this is what it said. Harriette, the Ajax cleanser shakes out white, turns blue. It was a house cleaning for Ajax Clemson.
Wow.
And I came walking up the steps to my elementary school one day, and the children were chanting this. They were just chanting that at me, and it was so incredibly rude. And,
Mm.
it didn't mean anything except for it hurt my feelings because they were being mean. And
Mhm.
so I rushed up the steps, and when I came home, I remembered it again, and I came in, and my sweet mother looked at me, and she's like, "What's the matter, baby?" And I told her, and normally my mother would give me a big hug and, "Oh, I'm so sorry they were mean." She's like, She has hazel eyes. Those eyes got big. You know how mama's eyes can get. Her eyes got big. She said, "Sit, let me sit you down, little girl, and let me tell you about your name."
Mm.
Okay, so starting with my father, who was Harry Augustus Cole. My father was the first Black state senator in Maryland. Later, he became the first Black judge on the Maryland Court of Appeals. He's this larger than life figure in Baltimore. When Bill Clinton left office, he named the main post office in Baltimore for my daddy.
Whoa.
And my mother said, "But that's not all." She said, "That's on your daddy's side.
Oh.
On my side, I think it's my great great grandmother, was named Harriette Ann, spelled just like me. She was a formerly enslaved woman, to our knowledge, who we have her manumission papers, who became manumitted. When her husband and children were about to be sold in Annapolis, Maryland, she got her little money together and walked from Calvert County, Maryland, where all of them were, which is very near to where Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman had lived, very near. She walked 40 miles to Annapolis to buy back her family. And my mother says, so the next time that somebody criticizes you about your name, what you need to know is your job in life is to live up to your name.
Ooh,
to have the honor of your name, to have the power of your name, to stand in your name. Girl.
Okay, so now I'm going to edge in closer to power
Come
of
on,
name.
come on.
This is in ancient Kemetic language called Kepera.
Yes, I know about Kepera.
When I was born, my mother named me Renee. And Renee is the past participle of the verb renaître, which means to be reborn, which is an ancestor name, and designated me the keeper of the records. And then the records are kept through the names. And it is not a small thing to have a name that's passed up to you, passed on to you, and the reverence for that name and that ability and that purpose seated in your name, seated in your name and your particular name. But your name is also connected to Harriette Cole, the African American woman who they experimented on and took her whole central nervous system.
Ooh, I don't know this story.
Whoa. In history, there's an African American woman, I think she's in Philadelphia, and she's a janitor at a facility. And they experiment on her and they take her whole nervous system and kind of do a Henrietta Lacks situation.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's an interesting tidbit, like to say the name Harriette Cole.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, our names are our legacies, are our heritage. And even if you get a guy's name, like my grandmother's name was George.
Wow.
Because that was her grandfather's name. And she was a girl, so her name still was George. Or people named James, like James May. I have my godmother's grandmother, James May. And so these names are very important. There are emblems. We carry them. Toni Morrison, who I always refer to, kind of like the Nation of Islam, and like Elijah Muhammad teaches us that. I always like to reference things in my head may not be mine. They may be Miss Morrison's. Miss Morrison says in Song of Solomon, she does a long diatribe on the power of the name and the name of Solomon and Shalimar, and just like even how the names could be mixed up, but It's still the destiny. You're still singing a song. It used to be called Solomon's Leap, but the only thing you remembered was Shalimar. But it still got you on your quest with your little tidbits of what it is you're supposed to do in your interim time as an arrow shot from your ancestors walking around in the world doing the work of freedom and liberation and dreaming, what we call loud dreaming.
Loud dreaming. Nice.
Dreaming that you do out aloud. This is your identity, and how you actualize your identity is from drawing your dreamscapes towards escapes, proscapes, landscapes, waterscapes, any way that you can to realize the dream. And so I always like to the words to our anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. They're always so inspiring to me because in those 3 acts, it tells you the whole parameters. And the last line, true to our God, true to our native land. Whenever I used to hear it, I used to always I feel like we were singing Kosi Sikeleli Africa, like freedom song. And I always would put my hand up like a fist. And when they say, true to our God, true to our native land. My father said, when you die and you Black, you go to Africa. That's the heaven. So old people in Louisiana heritage talk about Ginnan, which is heaven, which is the place that you go, you return to Africa. The water brought you here, the water will bring you back. And that's where you go. That's the space where you belong. So when my father passed away, he was sick. I told the story in Paris. Miss Morrison was sitting right in the audience. She had, on that day in November, she had just received the highest merit award of honor. Little Black girl from Lorain, Ohio, got the highest award from the French government for her outstanding contributions. And she had left that ceremony and come to the luncheon where I didn't know my book was going to be selected. And I told the story about writing the book and how my father was terminally ill. He was sick, and they were calling out the priests and the scribes and pimps, players, and 12-card layers. My father was a gambling man. He ain't have no good luck. But when I told my daddy I wouldn't go to Tanzania and Ethiopia to write the book because he was making his transition. And my father said, lots of people have died in our family, but no one has ever written a book. You go and you write that book.
Powerful.
When I told the story, Miss Morrison clasped her hands like this. She loved that story because she was very close to her father. In fact, that was the first book she wrote, really with a strong male protagonist. Song of Solomon, when from that perspective. And then my father died. I got there on the 28th, and then he died on the 29th. And so the next day after arriving in Tanzania, in Arusha, at the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. And then my mother said to me on the phone, thank you for being there to catch Daddy's spirit. He's on his way to Africa now. And that's what he believed. So that's a great story about the mission and the continued works that you do. I'm so pleased with the title of your program. We're talking about names. We're just going to stay in the cipher. We're going to be.
So let's stay in the cipher, but let me remind folks where we are.
Oh, yes.
Just take a moment and let folks know we are here together with Dream Leapers, my program that I'm so honored to be able to have wonderful guests like Dr. KOKO ZAUDITU SELASSIE. She is a wonderful person right now living, I believe, in my hometown. Are you still in Baltimore?
Yes, ma'am.
In
Yeah.
Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up, where my mama still lives. My younger sister and her family is still there. My cousins, we have folks in Baltimore holding it down, and so happy that Dr. KOKO is there in Baltimore, and so grateful to have her on the show. So let me tell you something, Dr. KOKO. Dream Leapers, how this came to be. A friend of mine gave me a poem some years ago and said, Harriette, I don't know, this is for you. I need you to just let me give this to you. This is for you. I need you to sit with this. And I'm like, you gave me a poem, huh? You know, not that he had written, someone else had written. And sit with this. And the poem said, come to the edge. We can't, we're afraid. Come to the edge. We can't, we may fall. Come to the edge. And they came, and he pushed them, and they flew.
Oh, I'm just gonna get to. Okay, you can't see the chili willies.
Yeah, I feel them, honey. And so,
What?
as I was sitting with this, I was like, what does this mean? And so, for many, many, many years, Dr. KOKO, I've been supporting people to activate their greatness, teaching public speaking, teaching communication, you know, how to be your best in one way or another. I wrote a book called How to Be, which is having its 25th anniversary right now.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And my work has been in coaching people to be able to tell their stories well. When he said this to me, a lot of my clients have been corporate clients and other things. I realized I needed to do more things in the community. And so, as I was literally looking around trying to find a name out of this poem, piecing all these words together, Dream Leapers in my meditation and scribing emerged. It emerged. It came. Said, this is what it is.
As the kids say less, say less.
Yeah.
I started channeling just the whole Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
Solomon's Leap.
Yeah.
It was the name of the place. Shalimar. Solomon's Leap. And the line in Toni Morrison, there's 2 lines in that novel that have been sitting with me, and affirmations. If you really want to fly, you have to give up the sugar, honey, iced tea that weighs you down. And she used the word.
Yes.
If you really want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down. Morrison always said in interviews for that novel, she said, I never said we were the people who believed they could fly. We were the people that could fly. We just knew how to fly. It wasn't a belief system, wasn't anything to be vetted. You know, that's another song lyric. And look what happened. Say less. But anyway, the leap of all of it is a leap into the self.
Yes.
But not just the singular self. For us, that's not the way the world is constructed. That's not the cosmology of the world of righteous, conscientized people, all kinds of people yearning for the best humanity to envelop them and embrace them in the world. The fairest treatment, the kindest words, the most gentle actions towards them. So you do have to take a leap and always be able to expand yourself. There's another line in that Song of Solomon when Pilate says when she's dying, she says, I wish I could have known more people. I could have loved more people. If I had known more people, I could have loved more people. And that's just such a beautiful thing. Like you were talking about, the public speaking, the confidence, the ability to narrate your story with the right amount of pathos and ethos and authenticity to say, I am who we are. I am Muntu Umuntu Nagabuntu. A person is a person because of people. And so the interviews, the view-ins, the way that we can pass information one to the other, to ignite, to reignite, to always keep the spark, the the underbrush of what it is that we hope for in our deepest hope, in our faith, hope, and all of the three stanzas of our Lift Every Voice.
Yes.
And oh, if people don't know about coming to visit Maryland, let me just digress for 1 second.
Sure.
You have to take the tour and the screenings at the Harriet Tubman Center. Just came from there in October. It's quite lovely, and it's adjacent to going to where Frederick Douglass lived in Talbot County. But the history is so great. I got some dirt, and I got some bark of a tree from the plantation, from Old Tree, the plantation where Frederick Douglass is. You can't access it now; it belongs to somebody, and the road is private, so you can't go to that great house that he talks about in the 1845 narrative, but it's there. So Maryland, and when Sister Harriet mentioned Annapolis, then you'll get the Kunta Kinte monument, because that's the where the Lord Ligonier, or whatever that ship was, where Alex Haley's people. When you have a seaport, wherever you have a port, I just had my 70th birthday party with the
Yes, that's how we learned about you.
wait, the little baby play my song. I told dude I put it on the playlist twice. You ain't played it once.
Oh,
Wait, but I love Dominic Jones. That's his other name. His mother gave him the name Dominic Jones. Shout out Atlanta, East Atlanta 6, Kirkwood, and everybody up Glenwood. Shouting out that neighborhood. It's so important that you never have a lapse in the leap. You got to take the old people with you leaping to freedom. You got to take the young people yearning for freedom and leaping for freedom. So if you don't speak their language, if you don't know the Migos from Offset, Takeoff, Quavo, well, Takeoff done took off, so he no longer here. But if you don't know the etymology of producers, where they're located, shout out to Top Dog in Cali. You got to be able to speak the language that all of your generations speak, else you cannot communicate with them.
I want to ask you something, because as you talk about that, well, first of all, I realize this is just a conversation that I hope will last forever. It's as long as it is right now, but it's going to continue. There are a couple things. Well, I'm going to go backwards. There are two important things. As you're talking, I think of a scholar who I met years ago and absolutely loved. He and his wife have passed on now, but Malidoma Somé and Sobonfu Somé.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And so his book of Water and the Spirit, where he talked about the name, about the role of the elders in divining the name, and just the importance of the whole community coming together to support, coming together to nurture, making sure that the earth is moist so that everyone's seeds can be planted and grow, no matter who they might be. And, for him, his name meant friends with the enemy.
Wow.
And he was the one sent from Burkina Faso, and he went to all of these prestigious universities around the world so that Westerners would trust him. And then his job, he believed, was to share the wisdom of his ancestors and of his very simple community in Burkina Faso with Westerners. So powerful. And as you talk right now about the connections from the ancestors to the young folk, and all of us remaining connected, which keeps that spirit young.
Yes.
It is essential for us to move forward. So I'm just curious, did you know Malidoma or Sobonfu?
I met Malidoma. We were on a panel together at Harlem Hospital. 1999, Dr. Henry McCurtis in psychiatry put a panel together, and I was presenting on Beloved, Toni Morrison's Beloved, from the literary standpoint and the character Baby Suggs Holy. And Malidoma was talking about maybe not his first book, but maybe another publication.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about ways of spiritual healing and the power. I think mine was more like the power of the word, because I focus always on the speech and the clearing. You got to love your hands. Yonder, they don't love them. They would rather cut them off than to see you put food in your mouth. I mean, she went to every body part doing a spiritual chiropractic to heal everything. So she told the men to dance. She told the men to cry, the children to laugh. And then the men cried and the children danced. And she played with that in all the combinations of dancing, crying, laughing. And the power to heal and the technology. The thing that stands out with Malidoma for me is the narrative that he tells about going to the Dagara elders with a video, a generator, and they're going to show them Star Trek. Yeah, or they're going to show them Star Trek and how they stand on this spot. And with their telecommunicators, they tell them, like, beam me up. And then the elders say, why they need all this equipment? Why they need all of this stuff? When we go, we just go. When we want to go up in the celestial, we just go. And the people like, what you mean you just go? Because we ain't say we believe we go. I believe I can fly. We just go. We just go. And so one of the things I love, like with hip hop parlance right now, let's go. What people are saying, let's go. And the ways in which they deliver it, it's just like if you grew up, we grew up with a cussing culture. So doing the signifying monkey, even if you're not a guy, you still as a girl, you want to be able to recite the Titanic, Shine in the Titanic, the signifying monkey, staggerly. You know, you have like those rhymes and things. So I was at a lecture at Sheikh Anta Diop University in Dakar in 2017. And I was doing a lecture on the importance of hip hop. And I was telling the young people at this conference in terms of memory, it was that African American History Month program or something. I said, we thank God for hip hop, because hip hop has given me a language given us a language where y'all way over here in Africa could talk to us way over here, because we speak the language of the shared beats. So I did a project called Rerouted Rhythms. It may be time for a station identification.
Almost. Oh, so let me do it now, because I know this is a good story.
It is.
Everybody, we're going to pause for the cause just for one moment and to remind you, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole, and we are riveted. What do I say? We are riveted. Dr. KOKO ZAUDITU SELASSIE is throwing it down. She is sharing wisdom across the generations, and that is really what we need to be paying attention to. So why do you tune into Dream Leapers? So that we can talk to people just like her.
Oh, yeah, a dream leaper. I wrote this. You had mentioned that I was a Fulbright scholar in Abidjan, and you said it was the first place you had gone in Africa.
It
was. All of my massive and crew in Abidjan, experiencing the African Cup of Nations, which they're hosting. Shout out to all the people that are rooting for whatever team they're rooting for. But
wait, let me just jump in for 1 second, Dr. Cole, to tell you a story about that, because I started my career at Essence magazine, and I'm a Howard grad, so I went to HBCU as well. I started my career at Essence. You know, grew up in a wonderful home and community in Baltimore. You know how dynamic the community is.
You know, I know.
And still, like, my father didn't like to travel, so we only traveled in the United States, on drives, which was
Yeah.
wonderful, but I never went anywhere the outs of the country. The first international trip I ever took was to Cote d'Ivoire with Essence. So we did months of research
Whoa.
in with government support to meet the businesswomen, the elected officials, the
Oh,
cultural. I
nice.
mean, we were doing a 20-page feature on
Yes,
Cote d'Ivoire.
I remember when the travel people used to
Yes,
really, even
we
like everything, every detail, what to pack.
yes, and so I was from a very young age always interested in fashion and presentation.
Okay.
Both of us, look, and I, as a young person, was a model. So
Whoa.
I really wanted to do fashion for Essence, which I ended up doing a few years after I started there. But we would, so fashion back then meant European fashion. That's what we knew. That was what
Mhm.
fashion was. We went to the Ivory Coast. We went to this tiny little village. And in the village, there were little boys sitting on the ground at looms that were very long looms, and their feet were pedaling on these looms, and they were making the
Mm,
cloth of the Ivorian people.
yes.
Then we go into the marketplace and we see this cloth on looms, looms and looms throughout this incredible marketplace. And we see the women draped in the cloth and with Western jeans, so they'd have something that was Western
Oh,
and something
sweet.
that was African,
Well,
and the
no,
headband. Well, I
so
mean, it was
so
fantastic. And what happened for me as a 23, 24-year-old, however old I was, my understanding of fashion changed forever
forever.
because I realized, oh, fashion, yeah, there's European fashion, but there's African fashion, and there's
Mm,
how we adorn the bodies that are not these pencil bodies. There's everybody. There's a
everybody,
in the
everybody's
curves,
body,
beauty,
everybody's
and
body.
all of the things that made us who we are in these fabrics. We know about Scottish plaids. Well,
Mm,
African people have their own version. Every group has its own so-called plaid, their
yeah.
own signature in the cloth that these little boys were peddling and making. It was magnificent.
It's amazing. It's an amazing. So when we talk about the Dogon people, talk about text and communication and language, like your tongue is your loom of your mouth or the loom of your body. And text and textiles are connected. And so that weaving, that vertical, that horizontal, that it's really the dance. It really is it's a weaving dance. Those are all technologies that are amazing because you have to lift the heddles, this way and this pedal that way if you wanted to have this. It's a lot. When I was in the US Army, I was a weaver.
Mm.
That was my job. When they would come back from Vietnam, if they had any upper body thing, I would, and just the loom would, because we had the one with the beaters, and so it would exercise them. Or if they had anything going with their fingers, I'd teach them how to macrame, which is a kind of hand weaving.
Right.
So this job that this research proposal that got me to the Ivory Coast. I used to shop in the Ivory Coast. So getting back to your chic story, I was living in Liberia, but I used to shop 3 or 4 times a year. Just fly over to Abidjan from Monrovia to go shopping. And so when I wrote this proposal for this hip hop research I wanted to do, I wasn't sure it was going to get funded by the, Fulbright America, embassy, State Department kind of thing, because it was called Rerouted Rhythms, looking an examination of Ivorian hip hop. I wanted to examine the beats. I wanted to see how they innovated because it's rerouted, it's rerouted. The beats come from Africa, take to the diaspora, coming back and rerouting itself in hip hop beats, and then how they're putting something on top of that to make it their own signature or to make it their own uniqueness. So I did a hip hop conference at the university where I was assigned. But meanwhile, I was always into the fashion. Lots of the great designers, fashion designers, come out of Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire, what I love about them, they have a Pan-African aesthetic in their presentation, because you could go into a tailor shop, any tailor shop, and say Nago style. And then they'll know, oh, Nago style. They'll understand the Yoruba cut of the blouse and what it has to look like. And so there's a common language that they're willing to speak. And like you mentioned, the hand woven cloth
Beautiful.
with the jeans is, signifying on très chic. And yeah, so we have so many gifts, and it's so free. I got my first, can I say, Telfar bag. I never had one, but because he's from Liberia, uh, Liberia is no, Senegal is the first place I ever been to. Dakar, Senegal is the first place I ever went to. I went there in the 70s as a young girl, full of dreams.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So what? But the thing about the language for the young people are not our enemies. Is the first thing you have to know, that they are not taking the whole race down, and it's not going to hell in a handbasket with a green ribbon on it. But
Well, and so language. I was an English major in college.
you
So
know, I picked it. I know y'all. I have taught y'all. I understand y'all. I used to be.
going to Howard, Toni Morrison taught there. She left just shortly before I was there. I mean, so many incredible minds were
Mhm.
at that school. I remember when I arrived at Howard, even though I grew up in this incredibly dynamic African American neighborhood in Baltimore, when I got to Howard and looked around, I was like, oh, I called it the United Nations of Black people.
Yes.
And so language took on a different meaning because there was just how you use language to express yourself, how you connect to storytelling through the use of language. And then as you listen and pay attention to these people who are from everywhere, like I made good friends with a group of Nigerian brothers
Oh
who
yeah.
were able to come because their parents had somehow gotten money out of the country before the country, one of the many times the country said you can't take your resources out.
Mhm.
And they were just so curious about how we live and the challenges that we have. And for Black people, why are you all complaining about what other people have to say? Just go and make money and do your thing. That was it. That was the Nigerians. Be enterprising, right? And then there were other people who were marching in the streets, especially people from the South, who were filled with the power of their grandparents, who had had certain experiences, and they were like, "Don't ever forget those experiences." It
Oh
was
yes.
language and culture, and
Yeah.
all of these communities coming together was so incredibly powerful.
Yeah. That's how I got to Ethiopia for the first time. Most of my friends at Compton Community College, where I got my AA degree, were Ethiopians. And one particular one was my best friend, Tigist Asafa, and her sister, Ganet Asafa. And so from that time, we were all friends, like it was a group of 20 people, and friends, because we have a large Ethiopian. Haile Selassie sent a lot of people to study in Los Angeles and DC. And so from there, I just became like how people used to be during the Garvey time, and when African Americans were signing up in Harlem to go fight for Haile Selassie against Mussolini and the people were trying to invade Ethiopia. This Pan African thing, like at even though Compton's not a HBCU, everything in Compton at that time is a HBCU.
Yes.
It's just we. Compton used to be all white. When we moved there in 58 from Los Angeles, it was all white. We were like the second Black people on the block. I'm from
Same for my family in our neighborhood in Baltimore. Same. White flight was real.
Where you from, the West Side?
From Forest Park Avenue.
You're the West Side. I think my husband went to Forest Park Middle School.
See, this is how
Not
big.
too far from the lake.
Not far. Now, we grew up across the street from the golf course.
The golf course. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Say less. Okay. But anyway, yeah, the thing about the Pan-African thing, the varying viewpoints, and I think nothing disturbs a dream more than outside chatter that does not resonate with your trajectory or where you're going, the direction in which you're heading. You got to really, what they told the line, and stay focused on the thing to stay focused on, not the distractions, not how other people, like sometime when I was teaching at Coppin, some of my Nigerian students more so always would be saying derogatory things about the Akata, the children of the cotton. And I'll be like, oh no, we're not gonna join in these silly reindeer games here. Ain't nobody got it worse. Ain't nobody got it better. We all was doing something different in response to the thing that was happening to us. Some got here sooner, some got here later, but we all interlocked in some struggle.
That's right.
So this Pan-African, the title of my paper that day that I gave for the Toni Morrison Society's meeting was with a Howard alum, Greg.
I knew Greg very well.
Yeah, this is another Greg. This is
okay.
I misspoke. This is the Greg that teaches at Tufts. He does work on the Palestinian struggle and the African American or the African diasporic struggle. But we were on a panel, and my paper was called "Tilling the Pan-African Landscape." I was looking at Aimé Césaire.
Mm-hmm.
And beginning of Negritude that was part of the Paris thing, looking at the Pan-African Congress the meeting in Paris, and we're trying to tie in Paris as a site of resistance and conversation that you mentioned, being at the Mecca, being at Howard University, and what that meant to nurture a dream.
Because there you have it, to nurture.
Yeah.
That's it, to nurture a dream. Yeah. Because we have them, but just like Malidoma Somé said, if you don't nurture that dream, then it's just a dream. It doesn't go anywhere.
A dream is like a plant. The seed that you plant, that you till, you make sure the soil is good, you make sure you water it, you make sure you care for it, you make sure you nurture it. It will thrive. The one with the neglect, benign or malignant or whatever, that's the thing that you're getting. And so the focus and the prayerfulness, it wouldn't matter if you prayed to a stick, stone, rock, or bone, whether you call God this, that, or anything, it would be that deep core belief of the highest good for all. The best results, the best joyful life, the best accomplishment. And I always think about this metaphor, Harriette, of a sheep, a shepherd in Ethiopia, in some of the highlands that you fly over coming into Addis Ababa. And he's got the little one tattered shirt, and he's got his little stick, and he goes out every day with his 100 head of cattle, lambs, and is content, happy, peaceful, and rewarded in that life. And no amount of money or gadgets and technological things and iPads and earpods and virtual reality, Nothing could shake him from the beauty of the landscape of his life. And if there's a dream to plant more cocoa, or I mean more coffee beans, if that's the only dream and that's the best dream, then it's like the words to the Beatles song, "Let it be." Let it be in existence for the good, the greatest good, and the happiest life, and the most satisfying and fulfilled visit here on earth. To be in a moment of bliss and joy, happiness, contentment, to be encircled by your ancestors, the power of divine forces, favor of celestial spheres. It could just go on.
I want to ask you, you were in this beautiful documentary In Our Mother's Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And that was produced by Ava DuVernay's company, is that right?
It was, she distributed it. Yeah.
She distributed it.
Array was the distributor. Yeah.
I love, I was just with her a couple days ago with her film Origin.
Yes.
Oh, have you seen it?
We were going last night, but I went to Sephora to get me an eyebrow.
Well, you must. It is going to blow your mind. It is.
Yeah, I saw the treatments, and
incredibly powerful. She was telling me, even with your film, her commitment to make sure that smaller productions get out there, that she's got this commitment to ensure that our voices reach audiences so that our stories continue to be told. And I'm just curious, we have just a few minutes left, but your vision for especially women creators at this moment in time.
Yes.
What is your vision? What do you see as you think about women creators?
Well, I mean, it's no small coincidence that Ava DuVernay is from Compton.
Yeah, there you go.
Shout out to all of the Louisiana folks. That's our territory, Compton. It's the 7th Ward. It's Black Catholicism. It's Louisiana, in the 99th percentile of all the Black people that live in Compton.
That's true.
That includes Dr. Dre and them, or East Texas, like Snoop D-O double G's people from. But anyway, the vision is always doing the ancestors' work. That's the key thing, because with that whole team, with that whole, I don't want to use the word, array of people behind you, that are in front of you, that are on the sides of you, you don't walk alone. That song, when you walk through the storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid, and you'll never walk alone. You don't walk alone. Like, speaking of Baltimore, Baltimore was always political. I lived on 1806 Madison Avenue when I went to graduate school. I graduated Morgan with my master's degree. I got my doctorate at Clark Atlanta University. But I lived across from 7 congressional district congressman, Perrin J. Mitchell.
Sure.
So I lived on Madison Avenue. The Murphys lived down that, this door's down. So I moved in.
And just for anybody who doesn't know, these are legends in the Black community in Baltimore and Maryland, beyond, I mean, nationally, truly. But Baltimore was one of the earliest communities to have a thriving Black middle class of people who were fighting for the rights of the folks who needed the fight most.
Oh, this is a special place. I got a 1945 model, a Baltimore husband. Yeah, this is a special place. It's the people here have a big hearts and are kind and are hospitable and have these real Southern North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia values of speaking to people. If you get to a stop sign and somebody's sitting on their porch and you make eye contact, you are obliged to speak and to acknowledge them. It's almost like it's the closest thing to being in Africa in terms of the values and the hospitality of it.
Right.
You could actually ask somebody, for directions, and they'll stop and tell you them and go out their way to like walk you a piece and then point you that no, don't go left. You're gonna want to go left. And just engage.
It's humanity. It's humanity. It's community.
Yeah.
It's love.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mama Coco. This was the beginning. This is the beginning. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you for all of your great work.
Oh, thank you. And don't forget my new book, The Second Line, is on Amazon. Oh, can I say that?
Yes.
Or any of the 40,000 million trillion online purveyors of fine books. It's so important to me because this is the book that I wrote in Abidjan. I wrote 4 pages a day, and then I had never written a book before. So then I went and got an MFA, a Master's in Fine Arts and Creative Writing. I said, well, if you're going to be writing a book, go learn some skills or see what they're talking about, at least, that you should have. So I was the oldest person. I was 60 when I graduated. I was so happy. But I was in Senegal, so I couldn't come. I was at somewhere else. But anyway, buy my book, or at least have a conversation about the second line, because we up in this, we up in here. We here and we out. Go ahead. So nice to meet you.
Thank you, my dear. Congratulations on the second line and of all the great work that you do. We appreciate you.
We will talk again forever.
I look forward to it. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in to Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. Do get a copy of Dr. Coco's book, The Second Line. We had such an incredible conversation. It will continue, and I hope it will also continue with you. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.